Hello everyone, it's Sakiziel here, and tonight I'll be reacting to Lotara Sarrin, 5-ish Minute Lore episode 34 by Old Man Lore Stories and Theory. I am looking forward to getting into this, especially after, the fact that I've watched the entirety of the 5-ish Minute Lore series, these and Mistakes of the Emperor, and these rants and just generally lore videos have been both very entertaining to listen to, but also very informative. I also know that Old Man has been working very hard on these, especially this one. You guys should definitely check out his content, and if you're not doing so already, and the link into the original video will be in the description box below. But without further ado, let's see what's in store for us.
The lore delivered in rants are sanctioned by their scholar Progenium as excess rageous. Prolonged exposure can result in loss of IQ, high blood pressure, random outbursts, and blunt force trauma to the skull, resulting in unconsciousness. Please consult your local physician for more information.
My purpose here, my sweet Evocatus, is to kill until my Primarch tells me to stop killing. Look to the skies, Captain Ophirion. Your fleet lies in ruins. Their wreckage will shortly be raining upon your cities.
Oh, great.
Don't worry, we know you're a vegetarian.
And the wild ride begins.
Brace yourself, Warpug.
Also, just love how in that last bit, the bit of red shine in her eyes is made that lady look like she was just possessed by a demon of corn.
Looks because every so often, even I must make an exception to long-held rules. One of the first lore videos I ever put out was on the subject of today's Voxcast, and time has not dulled the blunt force trauma that is soon to be applied. While in the last Voxcast I detailed why Jendor Shrivok had the dumbest name and nickname imaginable, today we revisit Our Lady of the Geneva Suggestion, the Mistress of Maximum Damage, the Angel of Abs, the Distressing Damsel, the Goddess of Good Times, and the Waifu of War Crimes. Today we're talking about Lotara Sarrin, captain of the Gloriana-class battleship The Conqueror during the Great Crusade of the Horus Heresy. Lotara took over command of the Conqueror at the age of 29.
By the way, that thing on her head actually kind of reminds me of the what was it, of the heretics in Dawn of War 1, the Chaos Builder unit, and those metal rods that they would drive into their heads and spines.
And was one of the youngest to ever command a battleship and the youngest to command an entire expedition battle group, much less command an expedition fleet that carried a Primarch. She barely came up to your average Space Marine's chest and didn't have any outward extreme martial ability, yet despite being mortal, tiny, physically unimposing, and in most cases less than half the age of 90% of the ship captains and a fifth of the age of some of the Astartes she commanded, she got not only respect, but downright admiration from the entire Legion and fleet, and there's a reason for that. Lotara was tiny, brilliant, beautiful, and as long as you're not causing her problems, you're fine. She'll joke, she'll laugh, but don't think for a second that makes you safe. This woman is a FAFO threat level 10, and she doesn't even need a fire to go looking for smoke. Lotara Sarrin is what happens if you take a swimsuit model and replace her general outlook on life with a honey badger on enough performance-enhancing drugs to murk a herd of rhinos. Not only was
that is, funny thing about honey badgers is also that one of the ways that they like to kill things larger than themselves is by biting their testicles off and then waiting for their prey to bleed to death. Fortunately for the rhinos, their parts are internal, but still, it is funny to me how despite being in nowhere near the same league as the Space Marines around her, in terms of physical ability, yeah, how she's able to be dominant over them through what's the word for it, through sheer well, so shall we say she has a special kind of attitude.
She a downright brilliant fleet commander, but she made it a point to choose violence every time for any reason, and not just your standard violence, because, well, that's just beneath her. You want standard run-of-the-mill violence? You can just ask any Space Marine and they'll hook you right up. No problem. Oh, do you want excessive violence? World leaders then. They have you covered. Gratuitous amounts of unneeded and unwarranted violence? Night Lords, and you don't get to take it back once you ask for it when they start. We're talking about a level of violence far beyond that. Lotara is disturbingly violent, pointlessly violent, the kind of violent where it's clear she's just going for style points. The second her FAFO level threat is tested, she instantly goes for the most insulting, demeaning, morale-crushing, and morally horrifying methods possible.
So ultra-violence.
Lotara Sarrin might very well be the most disrespectfully brutal character in 40k. The great scholar from the 3rd millennium, CJ the Champ, defined an energy source called Black Air Force energy. It is a person or an object that has insane potential and complete disregard of morality, lacking fear or even the suggestion of hesitation, with no thoughts to the consequences or even consideration of human life. Lotara was absolutely dedicated to destroying the Geneva Convention by any means necessary. And while I make it a point to say how absolutely violent someone would be in a given situation, let me just iron this one out so everyone understands my point about this woman entirely. And should the great scholar CJ the Champ have reviewed this, I humbly submit to you Exhibit A. Meet Angron. Even before Angron turned into a demon prince, he had the patience of a landmine in a bounce house. He was the Primarch of the 12th, afflicted by the Butcher's Nails, which made literally everything cause him untold quantities of pain and rage. Lotara Sarrin made Angron sit down and do actual paperwork.
You what?
Yeah, that says something considering in the only reprieve that Angron ever gets from his suffering lasts only a few seconds, and it's fueled by killing things.
Imagine, if you will, a 12 to 14 foot tall silverback gorilla on steroids with rabies and tasers hardwired to his testicles, holding an iPad, viciously picking at keys while typing up a citation. That's essentially what this boiled down to. The reason he did this because of one of the first missions that he was on with Lotara after she took over the captaincy of the Conqueror, which was against the Anshul Stellar Principality. During this assignment, Angron and the rest of the world leaders were stunned by Lotara's, quote, stunning devotion to duty, bravery, and exceptional valor.
What the hell is even that?
Or as any other outsider would call it, one of the worst atrocities committed in the last 1,000 years. Normally, during a fleet engagement, a Primarch in the fleet is going to be commanding that fleet. Lotara wasn't having that. The Conqueror was her ship. This was her fleet. Lotara, barely a few weeks into her command, deliberately went out of her way to commit as many war crimes as is possible to commit with a Gloriana-class battleship and its supporting fleet.
Which I imagine is a lot of war crimes, since if I remember correctly, the torpedoes fired by Imperial Navy ships are roughly equivalent to tactical nukes. I might be wrong.
If you're wondering how many war crimes she committed, all of them. She committed all of them. By the time she was done, the world leaders considered what they did in the mop of a mercy killing. She did a civilization so dirty that even Angron could only sit back and say, well, damn.
I just got this thing 10 minutes ago, but I swear, if anything happens to her, I'm killing everyone in here, and then myself!
Angron just had to be stunned. This tiny human had just strolled onto the bridge and stepped into a civilization that had survived for over 5,000 years of the Age of Strife, and then promptly clubbed it to death with a flip-flop and set the corpse on fire before pissing on it to put it out in front of his family on Christmas. He went back to his room because she had already killed everyone he had planned on killing for the next few weeks, and he made up an award for her on the spot. What was the award displayed as? This, the bloody handprint of Swell Guy Karn, right across her uniform. It's also the only award she ever wears. Imagine trying to compare ribbons with her.
I got a good conduct medal.
I participated in the liberation of the moons of Skarna. My captain said that my actions saved lives.
I harpooned the flagship of an enemy fleet and threw it at an elementary school that was having a Christmas pageant.
Oh, come on!
You know, I think, just as a hypothetical, would it have made that worse if if someone also just, remove one of the canisters of Life Eater virus from a virus bomb and just say toss it into that ship that was being thrown towards an elementary school? So just so there's also Life Eater virus thrown into the mix. Like, just a thought.
Wow. Damn, man. You just aren't gonna compete with that. What's more is that she proved it wasn't just a one-off situation or her just having a bad day and taking it out on an entire civilization.
If I remember correctly, this is one of the Adeptus Ridiculous art pieces that the patrons get. And I have a strong feeling, given Bricky's preferences, that he was the one behind this. And I definitely approve.
Lotara looked at every fleet combat engagement like it was a competition to outdo herself in the senseless violence department, and the World Eaters absolutely loved her for it. She became a literal mascot for the Legion, and who could blame them? She was a tiny blonde who took extreme satisfaction in the most savage acts imaginable. Lotara wouldn't just engage enemy fleets to win battles, she engaged enemy fleets to beat her previous high scores. The Conqueror...
Oh yeah, also the fact that I kind of forgot about that until you mentioned the fact that she's blonde, but most of the art of her depicts her with pretty much every hair color other than her actual hair color.
Under her command was less of a battleship and more of a chainsaw, and she was the Home Depot of homicide.
You can do it. We can help.
She would deliberately ran ships that were crippled, blast apart derelicts, and made frequent use of a weapon system called the Ursus Claws. For anyone unfamiliar with what this weapon does, it's basically a damned harpoon system that impales an enemy ship so the Conqueror can either drag it around like a dog with a chew toy, use the ship as a weapon itself, or simply make it easier to board. If this sounds metal as all hell, you have no idea. Have you ever seen a ship use another ship to ram a third ship? If you were on the Conqueror, you did. Have you ever seen a captain get tired of shooting the holes so she just dragged the damn thing behind her engine wash to melt it? If you were on the Conqueror, you did. Have you ever seen a derelict full of people begging for their lives, slingshotted and hurled at a planet like ordnance? Yep, if you were on the Conqueror, you did. Lotara Sarrin radiates pure anime antagonist energy with just the general disregard she has for other people. She didn't do all of this for any real strategic reason either. She did it because she's a living, breathing extinction level event the second someone decides they want to test the FAFO scale. You see, some people are driven to do one thing in life as a personal hobby or goal. Lotara saw the list of atrocities, genocides, and war crimes on Wikipedia and made it her personal mission to help by expanding it. I could stop talking right there, but if I failed to mention something, I'd be reduced to the resounding wail of hatred from the comment section for the next 4 to 6 years.
Also, I wish to pet this creature.
So with that being said, I present Exhibit B. I'm just gonna call this entire section the Delvaris incident. Angron had decided to turn on the Emperor and was hanging out with Lorgar for some reason when they both decided that the 500 worlds of Ultramar needed a facelift. They had burned world after world and were now at Armatura. Lotara showed up with the Conqueror, promptly gave the rock bottom to the defense fleet and sent the World Eaters to play with the Ultramarines on the surface. So while the World Eaters and the Word Bears were knee-deep in the Ultramarines' world of Armatura, she had just finished slapping around the fleet in orbit. It was just holding position. Lotara got bored and decided to play phone tag with the Ultramarines. She had quite a few lovely conversations where she mainly just took the piss out of them, pointing out the fact their fleet was dead and their planet was burning. She even made it a point to let them know that dying to the World Eaters was preferable, because Lorgar's Legion was doing, well, weird stuff to anybody they kept alive.
Yeah, I'm going to assume it was sacrifices to chaos. Or demonic possession.
And weirder stuff to the people they found dead. She also reached out to Angron to tell him he was just wasting time, and she could have turned Armatura into Fallout 30K, calling him Lord just to piss him off, and making sure he wasn't doing anything any more stupid than usual. She then called up Karn and shot the shit with him for a little bit. It was after one of these calls that an Ultramarine cruiser kicked on its engines after playing dead in the rubble of the fleet that Lotara had killed.
Hello, motherfucker.
It decided it would try to make a run for it. Lotara got all happy again because no one runs from the Conqueror. Also because there was something else to brutally murder. She reacted to the sight of a new victim the same way most people do to finding a $20 bill in a pants pocket after putting it through the laundry. She promptly began to reduce the Ultramarines into ultra wreckage when the Conqueror was fired on by boarding torpedoes. Lotara just shrugged. What difference did it make if they died on their ship or on hers? She would just call up Delvaris, leader of the Triari, the best shipboard fighters in the Legion and 5 companies strong, stationed on the Conqueror for just such a reason. Hey, she might even get a new piss pot out of this in an Ultramarine's helmet.
Maybe I'll take one of their Voxhalers
Captain
too.
Sarrin,
I'll put it on Angron's armor and play it that stupid chanting the Ultramarines do at random times throughout the day.
Lotara!
Oh wait! I'll just tell him Gilliman has an Eldar waifu.
Captain Lotara Sarrin!
Yes?
Delvaris isn't on board.
Pardon me?
Delvaris is not on board. None of the World Eaters are.
And we were just boarded by a company of Ultramarines.
Correct.
Okay, I've made this point before, but I think I'm just gonna make it again. If your ship gets boarded by Space Marines and you don't have Space Marines of your own to fight, you're honestly better off throwing yourself out of an airlock than trying to fight them, because the odds of survival are practically the same, but with the airlock, at least you get to do a flip before you essentially blow up. A company of Space Marines is gonna do to a ship they board what a Chipotle burrito bowl with ghost pepper flakes and a milk carton of liquid X-Lax is gonna do to your insides. There will be nothing but devastation, horror, and anyone who survives is gonna be scarred for life.
Sounds like a weapon of ass destruction. But also, it's also quite funny, by the way, that Space Marines remain that effective when boarding, ships designed by the Imperium, regardless of who's using them. Because if I remember correctly, Imperial ships are built to have these long hallways that work as choke points that the ship's ratings are supposed to be able to funnel fire down in the event of, say, getting boarded by orcs. To give the guardsmen aboard the best chance of actually repelling the invaders.
Basically, Lotara was facing a situation that was going to be absolutely humiliating at best, or she was going to get a skin-to-innards inversion via bolt shell at worst, and most likely the latter. She decided that she was about to have the Chipotle burrito bowl with the ghost pepper flakes and a large drink. She was going to do one better. If the Conqueror had what equated to an indigestion problem, she used the equivalent of a nuclear bomb to solve it. She walked to the Mechanicus decks and woke up the Legion's first attempts at dreadnoughts. Now, a dreadnought is horrifying at the best of times. An almost dead or really dead Astartes thrown into a coffin and strapped into a mech layer with enough armor to make a Baneblade jealous, using an assortment of weapons that belong on battle tanks, with all the subtlety and delicacy of a rabid Bengal tiger in the school for the deaf and blind. An Astartes dreadnought is just not fun to deal with. These were the rejects. Dreadnoughts made before they really figured out how to make them correctly, and Lotara woke up all 13 of them. 13 mentally unstable dreadnoughts, considered unstable by a legion of warriors, who were all affected by the Butcher's Nails, mind you, were told that their ship had been boarded and were set loose on it. The battle reached its crescendo on the bridge of the Conqueror, with Lotara shooting at the Ultramarines, screaming curses at them that would make any gutter rat from Nostromo both impressed and terrified.
Watch your profanity.
After treating the Conqueror's tummy ache with battery acid and an M80, the flag captain went down to the embarkation deck to talk to the returning world leaders. Upon seeing Dolores, well, she had a choice to make. I've said it before and I'll say it again. There are only a few ways to address a Space Marine that has done something you consider wrong or morally objectionable. I'll cover them here again. Option 1, build a bridge and get over it. Move on, shut up, swallow your tears and say nothing. This is your best option because knowing the 800 pounds of muscle and daddy issues might not be the best for your health. Option 2.
Also, like some may put it, a Space Marine is like an 800-pound gorilla with a fully automatic rocket launcher and power armor. And, you know, it's gonna do whatever it wants.
Be polite as possible. Say please, thank you, and hope to the God Emperor that they don't need a new chamber pot because your skull is the perfect size for that. And they might not think that you're using your brain for much anyway, considering you're complaining to a genocidal mass murderer. Number 3, talk to their superior about your issues. Be even more polite. Bow, scrape. If you walk out with your dignity intact, consider it a win. If you're here laughing later, at least you tried. If the entire Space Marine company starts doing what led up to you talking to the superior, well, you kinda had it coming now, didn't you? Let's see how Lotara handled the problem with the world leader Space Marine captain who left her ship to be boarded by Ultramarines.
Very calmly, Lotara Sarrin drew her las pistol, took aim, and shot a World Eater's captain in the face.
This is the beginning stage of option 4, the Lotara option. What else is in the Lotara option? Okay, well, first things first, if the Space Marine gets pissed and shoots at you, you not only don't die, mainly because of a librarian, mind you, you get even more pissed off because somebody had the balls to shoot at you on your own ship and you spit on the Space Marine for daring to shoot at you. Then you damn near start a riot on the embarkation deck, and when the 9-foot-tall space ape starts getting mad about how you're acting, you spit on his ass again. Then with everybody either laughing at him or smirking, when he tries to walk away, you tell him to turn his ass around and face you.
Also, like how in that previous art piece, she looks like a professional wrestler or about to go to town on someone.
Then you jump right in his face, call his mother a whore, spill out an explicit detail about how much damage his selfish decisions have caused, tell him to go to his damn room, and tell him not to come out until you tell him to. Then you tell him to get the hell out of your sight. The Lotara option is not recommended for 100% of all interactions with the Space Marine. Old Man LST, the boss, and the Commissar are not responsible for any and all physical or property damage that may ensue. Side effects of the Lotara option may include, but are not limited to, complete physical inversion, molecular binding with Space Marine boost, bolt shell lobotomy, mouth-to-anus realignment, Ebola, cranial mass injection, super Ebola, deletion of family lines,
You know, I imagine the Ebola and Super Ebola are with the assumption that you're messing with the Death Guard.
Genocide, the Hulk versus the Loki treatment, the Omni-Man versus Guardians of the Globe treatment, ugly crying, becoming one with the spirit of Christmas, comprehensive physical restructuring, jazz hands, the feeling of the entire Malvern Tabernacle choir screaming through bullhorns directly into your ears, Herman von Schraub. In rare cases, side effects include getting kicked so hard in the chest you become one with the Speed Force, becoming the Flash, and go back in time to stop yourself from engaging in the Lotara option. Results may vary. Consult a psychiatrist before engaging in the Lotara option. Do not mock the Lotara option. Old Man LST recommends a forward directive, a living will, and that you give your soul to the deity of your choice or Joe Pesci, because upon engaging in the Lotara option, your ass belongs to the Space Marine in question. After the destruction of Devar, she quite literally sets another first in the lore as the only human to try to teach a Dreadnought how to play cards. I have a hard time imagining this, but it happened. Lord, one of the first Dreadnoughts of the 12th Legion, didn't particularly like trying to hold standard playing cards in a claw that was used to crush tanks, but I gave him an A for effort. They actually had a servitor holding them for all of 20 seconds before he said it was pointless. I still can't get over that mental image. A 5'1" woman, sitting at a table, across from a Contemptor pattern Dreadnought taller than Ankron, struggling to put together a full house. There's your mental image. It wasn't too long after that the Lorgar.
That is hilarious, especially when you consider that if that Dreadnought is one of those 13 crazed ones she had let loose to repel the Ultramarines. The fact that she even got him to sit still long enough to even decide it was pointless in the first place. That's an achievement.
Angron took the Horus Heresy, bus tour, friendship, and mutual enlightenment to Nuceria. And if you don't know what Nuceria is, it's Angron's homeworld. And if there's any world that didn't want to not only find out that the Primarch that was raised there was still alive but had returned, it was Nuceria. Even Conrad Curse would have gotten a more happy welcome, and that's a horrifying thought.
Because, oh boy, did Angron have a score to settle with Nuceria.
Lotara didn't care about any of that, though. She was just sitting in orbit, just lounging. She didn't have a huge fleet with her, just the Fidelix Lex, which was the flagship of the Word Bearers, and another ship called the Trisagion, which was bigger than both. While Lotara was lounging, the people of Nuceria were displaying their passion for their returned Primarch and his legion, as well as the Word Bearers, by dying in numbers that would cause a death corps of Kriegsmen to laugh hysterically. Gilliman decided at that point it'd be a good idea to cobble a fleet together. By the way, I think Betrayer is an absolutely goddamn incredible book, not just because of the bromance between Argyll, Tull, and Karn, but most importantly because you not only understand why Angron is as screwed up as he is, but also why he joined the heresy to begin with. Angron is a traitor Primarch that I can't even argue with as far as his reasons for wanting to murder his dad.
Also, I personally wouldn't even call him a traitor, because as to be a traitor implies that you were ever loyal to begin with.
Some Primarchs turn because of stupid reasons. Some turn because of flat out screw you deaditis. Angron turned because the Emperor all but made an absolute guarantee that he would. With all that being said about Angron, my god, Lotara! Oh my god! So basically, the Ultramarines come in with 41 ships to 3. The Wiki seems to just ignore this and blow smoke up the Ultramarines' ass while glossing over the fact they hilariously numbered Lotara and the other 2 ships. If you read about this battle on the Wiki, it makes it sound like the Ultramarines were in this really dire situation where they valiantly fought the Void battle and managed to land on the surface where they fought the good fight and lost. Nah, not even close. Lotara's fleet was hilariously outnumbered and outgunned, but if you think Lotara was worried, she was practically salivating. Gilliman was commanding his fleet, and he was like, alright, I'm just gonna kill the Word Bearer's flagship because Lorgar's an ass to take out the Conqueror by boarding parties, and then kill that big whatever the hell it is. And then I'm landing my troops, and I'm doing my courage and honor thing. What wound up happening was Lotara was killing cruisers like cockroaches. And yeah, they wound up getting the legs, but she was committing so many war crimes that both the void and ground battle went up in smoke, as what should have been a certain victory turned into Gilliman running for his life after barely making it to the ground in the first place.
You know, given that the Conqueror had the Ursus Claws, and what you can do with those, I imagine that being, horribly outnumbered just means, use the Ursus Claws, hook them into an enemy cruiser, and swing that cruiser into another one. Use the enemy fleet as weapons to destroy the enemy fleet.
She even decided to go for even more style points, spearing 2 cruisers through their keels with the Ursus Claws and dragging them to the Conqueror to hold them in place while she just pummeled them to death. She then decides that murdering their 2 cruisers wasn't enough. Oh no, she kicked them loose with the Ursus Claws and then gave the order to ram the 2 dead ships to kill more helpless people. Everyone was catching the hands, and she was making the Conqueror flip, ram, kick, flip, and tap dance all over the Ultramarines fleet. But hell, with those kinds of numbers, it was only a matter of time. Eventually, strike cruisers made it through, and the Conqueror, having literally fought their fleet to an absolute standstill, was eventually outflanked by a battle barge and boarded. That didn't go over well for the boys in blue. You see, Delvaris had learned his lesson well from the last time he had pissed off Lotara. And when the Ultramarines got on the Conqueror, Delvaris and the Triarity welcomed them with 5 companies of chain axes to the face. We don't even need to say anymore, but to hell with it. Exhibit C. Absolutely, a space pirate. Now, after a really bad boarding at Almatora, and then Lotara holding off an entire Ultramarines fleet, the Conqueror was beyond piss poor shape, and it needed time for repairs, a year in dry dock.
Also, since Lotara keeps getting portrayed with abs, it's also kind of making me imagine that she might do a similar thing to Grand Admiral Thrawn, where it's like, where it's they don't normally have to fight it up close and personal, and by that I mean in being the one actually fighting, and especially not physically usually. But on the grounds owns that getting in the exercise is and doing combat training regardless is good for your mental acuity as well as your physical health.
Would have been great, but seeing how Angron had been turned from a bloodthirsty, barely sentient, screaming, rage-filled monstrosity into a red, bloodthirsty, barely sentient, screaming, rage-filled monstrosity, this created issues all of its own. If you're wondering about the Angron thing, well, hashtag blame Lorgar, and let's just put that incident on the list of reasons I'm going to die of laughter when Corvus Corax gets his hands on that little bastard.
Also, I am honestly surprised is that Angron didn't kill Lorgar for turning him into a demon, just because Angron just wanted to die, and now he'll never die. And even worse, there's Korn decided to mess with him by making it said, oh, he's a demon Primarch, but he still has the butcher's nails in his head tormenting him.
Add to that, there was the fact that the world leaders went from about to lose their mind to A, B, C, D, maim, kill, burn! Add to that, the water was starting to turn into blood at random. Put the cherry on top of this bullshit Sunday, and now you have demons of Korn just showing up and killing crew. Note to anyone listening, having a demon Primarch on your ship is like having sex with a $2 prostitute on Nickel Night. I could care less how hard up you are, you're going to have side effects. The heresy is completely kicked off, Angron is a literal flying rage monster, and Horus just said the party's on Terra. And the Conqueror now resembles an Orc Rock more than a Gloriana-class battleship with the damage that has been done to it. A year in dry dock would be a great thing, but it's not going to happen anytime soon. The heresy is on! Horus has said the party's on Terra, and we gotta move! What to do?
Captain Sarrin, I have an idea. Let's go to Heshabar. They sided with the War Master and have already messaged us after we dropped out of the warp in their system.
Oh?
Yes, Lotara. They said we can have all they can spare. Isn't that great? Here's a data slate with all the supplies they are ready to have loaded and sent to us.
Deploy the Legion.
What?
Didn't you hear me? Deploy the Legion.
It's a loyal world, Lotara.
Ah, yes. When she decided that all they could spare wasn't enough, so she invaded the planet and enslaved the entire populace and took everything they had.
They can't give us everything we need, but they will sure have it.
Lotara, they are our allies.
I'm beginning to smell bitch up in here. Deploy the fucking Legion.
Ma'am, this is a Wendy.
So yeah, Sarrin unleashed the full strength of the 12th against a friendly world. They left a lifeless ruin behind and made sure to take enough materials and resources to supply the ship and enough slaves to where Angron wouldn't scream so loud he'd shake the deck plates because he hadn't killed anything in the past 15 seconds. Then she took a hot bath in the tears of all the orphans she had made. Okay, it was actually just water, but damn! She did this multiple times on the way to Terra, all the while dealing with a ship that even the world leaders were beginning to get a little bit sus of. You see, when you're already dealing with the butcher's nails that are hammering into your head and random demons just play peekaboo with you before murdering some slave that was there, the walls begin bleeding and you always seem to need a new driver because the one you have is dead, it leads to a feeling that you're cursed. The Conqueror was as close to a ship of the damned as you could possibly get, so it was no surprise that even some of the world leaders were getting a little bit concerned.
Also the fact that, when you have something like, say, a demon Primarch around, if I remember correctly, just their mere presence can just can cause all manner of madness, like the aforementioned walls bleeding and demons of Korn just popping up.
One of them, Skane, went to Sarrin and tried to confide in her. He approached the situation as delicately as a member of the 12th could at that point in the Conqueror, which of course left her 2 guards dead and had her pointing her last pistol at his eye. World leaders. He then made it a point to convince her that the Conqueror was cursed. No shit! Angron was just gone. No shit! And it was past time to note right out of there. I mean, it seemed like a good idea. What human in their right mind would possibly want to stay on that ship?
Well, Well, yeah, because it was her ship.
Became the de facto leader of the group and stepped in to organize the escape from the Conqueror. For a few hundred crew and a lot of the world leaders who just wanted to walk down a hallway without it screaming at them. Lotara had a banging good plan. You see, because a battleship serves a lot of roles in a fleet. Command and control just being one of them. The Gloriana class was quite literally the granary of the fleet it was with, supplying other ships in the fleet with food and supplies. So all they had to do was get the crew off the Conqueror and onto another ship. Lotara had 4 supply shuttles sitting empty and ready to go, and did her damnedest to make sure that no one would screw it up. Just get in the supply shuttles and get the hell off the ship. Simple, easy. And when everyone had finished getting on and Skane was having an anime speech where he was just like, hip hip hooray, we're out, Karn walked in. And then Lotara started yelling at Karn for being late. Skane did his best to focus, performed some quick mental math, and then heard Lotara whispering about something smelling like bitch in here. And then, with Karn holding Skane down, Lotara shot him in the eye. A quick call to the bridge later, and the Conqueror's guns opened up, making 3 of the 4 shuttles a memory and leaving the 4th just swishing in the non-existent winds of the void. So why'd you leave the 4th alive? Take this quiz to demonstrate your Lotara Sarrin knowledge. She left the 4th shuttle alive to A, give them a chance to return, B, scare anyone else who would think of running, C, she had someone she liked on board, or D, she was going to talk shit. If you pick D, you're exactly right, you get a gold star.
You know, I still find it hilarious is how despite her small size, how she can just terrify and terrorize people.
She walked back up to the Conqueror, kicked up her feet on her throne, and told the world leader on the shuttle exactly what she thought of him, his mother, his dog, his shoes, his cut, and his style, before having him blown out of the sky. Then she promptly went to the bathroom and wiped her ass with a copy of the Geneva Convention before moving on to Terra. Now, here's the thing. Chaos corruption gets to be a relatively massive pain in the ass for anyone wanting to get things done in a rational manner. If you're on a Mortarian ship, everything stank, the toilets won't flush, but at least everybody's happy. On Magnus' ship, everybody was too busy playing Paradox, Billiards, Australian, Roulette, 4th Dimensional, Hypercube, Chess, Strip Poker to even figure out why they were there and who's scheming against who.
Don't forget all the rampant mutation going on.
On Fulgrim's ship, everything stank, the toilets won't flush, there's a dead hooker in the corner, and there's enough drugs per square inch to put down a rhino, and I mean the vehicle and not the animal, but at least everybody's happy.
You know, considering what chaos corruption will do even to inanimate objects. Yeah, that still sounds about right. In fact, I'm willing to bet that there's some chaos rhino belonging to the Emperor's children, and that probably has some sort of warp dust addiction.
On Lotara's Conqueror, well, everyone was really pissed off. The walls were bleeding, the floor was bleeding, if you ran into a world leader, you were bleeding, and all the wild demons that used to pop out of the shadows were now just chilling out in the lounge.
I'm on my period!
So is that an indicator that she was also getting the angry just by virtue of chaos corruption, which, given how Lotara is when she's angry, the idea of her being perpetually angry like most of the world leaders is concerning, terrifying, horrifying, and many other adjectives that basically describe just how bad that situation is for anyone and anything near her.
All of this was due to the fact that Angron was simply there, and Lotara had had enough. Angron wasn't just titled, and frankly, the Conqueror was about 2.5 seconds from exploding because Angron didn't have the rational thought that maybe killing the Mechanicus people who keep the reactor from overloading might just be a bad thing. Added onto that is the fact that you can only try to take so many baths with the water turning into blood before you piss a woman off. So she decided to do something about it and cut a deal with somebody I've talked about before. The Painted Count! Gendar Shrybot. You see, the painted clown just happened to be in possession of a ship where Conrad Curse had a maze built to contain/torture Vulcan. And so Lotara, after cutting a deal with Slapbox Skibbity Bop, Drop Top Kids Bop, fuck his name. After cutting a deal with a painted clown, she teleported Angron into the maze and off the Conqueror, so she could at least sit down for 5 damn seconds and not have to hear Angron screaming. As the Siege of Terror started to drag on, Lotara started getting legit worried about the Conqueror. The crew was starving and exhausted. She kept on seeing people that she thought was dead. In fact, she even thought the ship had put one of the crew that she liked into her bed because it was trying to keep her happy. She maintained this level of general nervousness, mainly because the ship was quite literally falling apart around her. Entire segments of the thing were just wrecked. Dead bodies everywhere, blood-sucking parasites all over the place, more blood on the walls, you name it, it was wrecked. Suddenly, Karn showed up, and Lotara never even remembered him getting on board the ship. Also, Karn looked like he got into a fight with a wood chipper and lost. Unfortunately for swell guy Karn, he had indeed ran into a wood chipper named Sigismund, who had quite effectively murdered him. Lotara realized she was talking to a ghost. Lotara needed to get the Conqueror's supplies and repairs and to get the ship that was being held together with what looked like gummy worms and spit back together again. She reached out to Horus, telling his equerry to screw right off. When she was face to face with Horus, he began to recite her a poem that had been written about her. This very poem had gotten the poet's spine realigned by Karn in a very cheap but not very healthy manner. Horus seemed to be taking a lot of amusement in reading Lotara her poem, which confused Lotara to all hell until he flat out asked if she even knew that she wasn't Lotara Sarrin. Let me say that again. Horus asked Lotara Sarrin if she knew that she wasn't Lotara Sarrin. All Lotara could do after that comm link shut off was stare at the wall and wonder exactly what in the hell Horus was on about. Considering how screwed up everything was, a conversation with Horus that ended up with him telling her she wasn't herself after reciting a poem about her was only the 9th weirdest thing she had seen that day. Besides, everyone was getting ready to bring this thing to a close. Pretty much the only thing that everyone was looking forward to was the big fight. Angron versus Sanguinius. The world leaders bet everything on Angron, including the last bit of their sanity. Angron landed in front of Sanguinius, started running his mouth and tried to run the Angel's Fade. Angron's arrival had been hyped up for months and this fight was going to be epic, amazing. Well, it turned out he was amazingly one-sided. With everyone watching, the glorious Golden Hawk Boy absolutely murdered Angron, ripping the butcher's nails out of his head just outside the Eternity Gate and making the Primarch of the World Leaders yowl like a wild animal. Not like a wolf or a lion or a jaguar or a leopard or anything like that. Here's a visual representation of Angron in Sanguinius' hands.
Fuck you! I was right! Fuck you! I was right! Fuck you! I was right!
Horus had sent his big dog to Sanguinius and wound up with a screaming rage machine getting owned so hard when I read it I legit just blinked, looked at my Primarch Duelist video and promptly declared myself a psychic. The Blood Angels typed GG easy in all chat and the world leaders, as if they hadn't gone on the deep end a long time ago, well and truly strapped ICBMs to their backs and launched themselves into the deepest hole they could find. The Legion began to rip and tear itself apart. Not only that, after months of not being shot at, the Conquerors started getting shot at again. Lotara thought this was bad. She turned and started heading for her chair, but something was in it. Basically, Lotara was looking at the real Lotara, or to be quite honest, what Lotara had become. The Conqueror liked her, and so when she liked it so much back, they literally got married and got bonded with each other on a physical level, becoming some sort of empiric thing that existed on the throne of the Conqueror.
So I was right when I reacted to the old Lotara video. Oh, with the part of the crew, part of the ship thing.
The thing that had meshed Horus, that Horus had read the poem to, was nothing but a shadow of the woman that had existed. The real Lotara sat on the throne, bonded to it, and told the ghost of her former self that she was nothing more than her weakness, cut away from her, the part of her that wanted to run from the Conqueror. Lotara told her ghost she wasn't even the first one, not even the 10th, and at first she tried to be polite to them, but now she just ignored them because it always upset the ghost to learn the truth. And again, I look back on my theory crafting when I talked about Lotara before. Back almost 2 years ago,
Wonder what's up with that phone ringing.
when I first talked to you guys about Lotara Sarrin, the most savage creature in creation. Damn it, someone ought to get that phone.
Flashback.
But I do not believe that Lotara ever actually left the ship. Khorne, the Blood God, might have looked on the awe-inspiring power of the Conqueror and favored the bloodthirsty and savage captain who commanded it, and made them one. I fucking called it! Lotara Sarrin in some way is still alive in the creature known on board the Conqueror as the Mistress. Lotara brings her special breed of insanity against anyone who dares to even suggest they have a better idea than her about how the Conqueror can be run. As some piss-poor bastard named Kosalax has found out, almost to his death when he had tried to assume control. The Conqueror is Lotara's ship, not Angron's, not the World Eater's, it's hers. Kosalax, the current world leader who is considered the captain, knows this now, after Angron showed up 10,000 years later, and the real captain pledged her ship to his service. Kosalax isn't the captain, he's just a passenger, because there's only one captain of the Conqueror, the captain that for 10,000 years has not only been respected, but in many places and cases admired and outright feared. And this captain does not share her seat, and no one runs from the Conqueror.
Getting tongue-tied. Yeah, that was definitely fun to watch. And you can definitely see how much work old man and everyone who did the voice acting with him and put into this. It's truly an amazing video. You guys should definitely, well, as I said earlier, anyone who isn't already checking out his stuff should definitely do so. I hope you guys enjoyed it watching with me. And thanks for watching. Until next time. Ta-ta!